Hello and welcome back to the channel, or if this is your first time here, welcome to the channel. My name is Kev. I am not a doctor, but I have been living with psoriatic arthritis for the last 20 or so years, and on this channel I like to talk about my experience with it, both in terms of how it feels and what I do to try and self-manage the condition. Now, when I talk about self-management, just for context, if you haven't been here before, I'm not talking about not taking medication. I'm talking about the things that you can do in terms of lifestyle changes or lifestyle interventions that can help you manage the disease, which can be used in conjunction with any sort of medication you're on. So today I want to talk about sleep, because sleep is really, really important. And it's kind of interesting that as a society we seem to hate sleep. A lot of what we do seems to hinder or reduce our ability to get a good night's sleep. I think that's probably something to do with the fact that when you're asleep, you can't consume, and we just love to have people consuming all the time. And yeah, sleep is not conducive to consumption. Anyway, let's just jump straight in. So, what has sleep got to do with it? Well, poor sleep can have a whole bunch of both direct and indirect impacts on your day-to-day life and on your disease, whether that's psoriatic arthritis, rheumatoid arthritis, or whatever other chronic pain condition that you're living with. So, an example of some of these effects would be a reduced threshold for pain or reduced capacity for pain. So, if you are in pain, you're having a flare up, or even if you, I don't know, stub your toe off a doorway, if you've had a bad night's sleep, you are probably going to feel that pain a bit more intensely than you would have if you had a good night's sleep. And this can be really problematic because it can kick off this downward spiral. Because if you're in pain, you can have trouble sleeping. So if you have a bad night's sleep, you have a flare up which causes some pain, you're tired, so you're feeling the pain more, and then you go to bed that night and you're feeling the pain more, so you can lead to this kind of cycle of disrupted sleep. So it's this downward spiral, or a cycle if you want, where um, your symptoms can get worse, and then that causes other knock-on effects that in turn cause your symptoms to get worse, right? That's why it's a downward spiral. Another example of this is increased stress. So when you've had a bad night's sleep or several bad nights sleep, your stress or your propensity for stress tends to increase. And one thing that I've learned, and I've felt this directly, is that an increase in stress tends to yield an increase in inflammation. I often feel that with psoriasis. So I have psoriatic arthritis. So whenever I'm going through a stressful period, whether it's in work or personal life or whatever, I notice that a lot of stress can cause my psoriasis to flare up. And that's another annoying one, because when your psoriasis flares up, you kind of become very self-conscious about it. You know, you're aware that you've got these kind of ugly, scaly, red patches on your arms, and that causes you stress. And that stress is making it worse, right? And again, you're going into this kind of feedback loop, which is really, really unfortunate. But having a poor night's sleep or not sleeping well will increase the stress, which can increase your inflammation, which can in turn cause you to have worse sleep. And again, we're entering into this, reinforcing feedback loop or reinforcing cycle where things are getting worse, and it's reinforcing itself over time. There's also this idea of impaired decision making when you're not sleeping well, and this one is really important because if you're not sleeping well and you're not well rested, you tend to make poor decisions about everything. So that could be you didn't sleep well, so you don't exercise today, right? Um, you're not exercising, you didn't sleep well, so there's a good chance you're not going to be eating well. If you're very tired and you haven't got the kind of energy benefits that you get from exercise as well as having a good night's sleep, then if you're presented with like an easy option for food, junk food, whatever that might be, you'll tend to kind of binge and make poor decisions around food, and you'll tend to take the easy option. So if you're tired and stressed and you've got some, you can get a frozen pizza and put it in the oven versus making a fresh salad yourself, you're probably going to lean towards the easy option, which is just throwing some frozen food in the oven, which is not necessarily going to be good for your overall symptoms, because if you're eating poorly, there's a good chance you're going to feel that in terms of physical symptoms. And again, we enter that feedback loop or that cycle where things just kind of get worse and build and snowball and get worse and worse and worse, right? Another reason that sleep is really important is that when you're asleep, this is when your body actually has time to recover from any sort of stresses or, injuries or damage or anything like that. And that's not necessarily an injury like you've, got a paper cut or something like that. This is, building muscle. If you work out, for example, bodybuilders know the importance of sleep, because when you go to the gym and you work out hard and you really stress your muscles, the growth of your muscles, that actually happens during sleep and during rest. So if you're a bodybuilder and you're trying to put on as much muscle as possible, actually what you want to do is go to the gym, and then you want to spend the rest of the day sitting, lying down, or sleeping, right? Because any sort of additional stress is going to take away from your body's capacity to heal and build new muscle, which is a response to the damage that is done to the muscle by working out, right? It's an adaptive response. But anyway, there's a lot of interesting stuff about sleep. I'm not a sleep expert, but you can go find some of this guy's work. This is Matthew Walker. If I remember, I'll put some links in the description, but you can just go to the search bar on YouTube and type in Matt Walker and Andrew Huberman. They had a good conversation. So if you're interested in sleep, I think it's really worthwhile kind of checking out some of his work. I think, to wrap up on the importance of sleep, it's actually considered unethical to study the effects of sleep deprivation, because the effects are so negative in terms of the impact on your health. So people have done this in the past, before we kind of got ethical around science and we stopped doing weird experiments on people. There were people that deprived themselves of sleep for a few days, and actually what happens is they just go mental. You start to lose your mind, and there's a whole host of like really, really bad problems. And that's why you can't even really study properly the effects of sleep deprivation, because to do that to another person would be unethical. Anyway, that's enough about that. Plenty of resources online. In this video, I want to talk about what we can actually do to improve our sleep, especially those of us that are living with arthritis, knowing that it can be difficult to sleep when you have arthritis because you're feeling the pain of arthritis, both physical and emotional. Okay, so I'm going to divide this into kind of two different sections. You can throw money at this problem and you can, get some of the benefits if you have the money. But if you don't have the money, don't worry about it. We're going to, in the next slide, talk about some non-money related things. But I think these are useful things to consider. If you do have the money, there are things you can do to improve or help you get a good night's sleep. So blackout blinds. You're going to increase your chances of having a better night's sleep if the room that you're trying to sleep in is really, really dark. Okay. There's this whole thing around kind of the day-night cycles in your body and all that sort of stuff. But basically, the darker the room, the more you're kind of maximizing your chances of sleeping well. There's a thing called a chili pad. I'm sure there's like lots of different, this is a brand, I think. I have something called a chili pad, or it's called an Euler or something like that. I'm not affiliated with any of these people. But basically, it's like this little pad that I wrap around my mattress, and it's attached to this little like air conditioning unit is what it looks like, and that pumps cold water through the little pad that's wrapped around the mattress. So what I can do is set the temperature for the bed, because I have a lot of trouble sleeping, especially in the summer if I visit hot countries. I have a lot of trouble sleeping when I'm too hot, and what this does is just allows me to set the temperature of the bed. They've got all this scientific research where they'll say, they'll modulate the temperature for optimal sleep and all that sort of stuff. I don't really care. That stuff is all fine. I just want the bed to be cooler so that I'm not too hot so that I can sleep better. So chili pad, it's not cheap. It cost me something like €600. Like, it is expensive, but the value that I get out of it in terms of sleep is just huge. There are some supplements as well you can take for trying to aid your sleep. I'm not talking about sleep pills here. I don't think sleep tablets are a good idea unless absolutely necessary. But a supplement I use is magnesium spray. I use magnesium spray every night before I go to bed. So what I'll usually do is I'll just spray usually on the front and the backs of my legs. I find I get very restless legs when I sleep, especially if I've been in the gym and I've been squatting or something like that, and I can feel like my hamstring being tight. If you've ever gone to the gym after a period of a break, or like if you remember your first day going to the gym and working out, you'll remember the feeling of working some muscles and how they feel afterwards, right? It's called DOMS, delayed onset muscle soreness. And I find that if I've done like a lot of deadlifts or a lot of squats, and my legs, especially my hamstring, the back of the leg, when they're tired, I find that they cramp up. And my wife actually complains all the time, because in my sleep, I'll be like tossing and turning, I'll be kicking her, I'll be moving my legs a lot, and it's because they just kind of get really crampy and restless. And magnesium spray is the one thing that I've found that really, really helps here. When I use the spray, I don't have all those problems, and I just generally sleep better. So I would definitely recommend magnesium spray. The last thing is a high quality mattress and good comfortable sheets. So I think there's an old saying that you should spend money on the things between you and the ground. So tires, shoes, mattress, right? These are the things between you and the ground, and generally you'll get a good return on your investment when you do spend on these things. High quality mattress, you want to be comfortable, you want to get a mattress that suits you. Depending on how you sleep, if you're a side sleeper, you might want to go a bit softer. This is all going to be kind of personal preference. I'm sure there's a whole bunch of science behind this. You're just going to have to go research yourself. I went and found this like box sprung mattress. It was expensive. I had like 10-year guarantee and stuff like that. So try and get the most for your money, but I would say if you can, spend a bit of money on your mattress, because the return is huge in terms of your health and in terms of managing this disease. I also put linen sheets there because I have a set of linen sheets and they are insanely comfortable, very cool, very breathable, and I only have one set, annoyingly. And whenever we change the sheets and the linen sheets are in the wash or whatever, I'm always just counting down the days until they're washed and dried that I can put them back on, because I just sleep better with these sheets. They are more comfortable, but linen are really expensive. But again, they're another thing that's kind of an investment, where linen ages really well, so it can actually get softer and more comfortable over time. So these are some of the things we can do to throw money at the problem. But if money is an issue, or you're not in a position to throw money at the problem, there's a whole bunch of other things that we can do that maybe require a little bit more work, both physically and mentally. And the first obvious thing is put your goddamn phone away. And I mean this in a couple of different ways. So scrolling and looking at a screen before bed, if you spend the hour before bed sitting on your couch just scrolling through social media, and chances are if you're scrolling through social media, you're seeing things that are probably annoying you. Like if you're being exposed to a lot of stuff that's triggering kind of outrage, where you're like, oh, look at those woke people, I hate those woke people, or look at those racists, whichever side of the spectrum you're on, right? Social media is full of all that sort of nonsense. If you're reading the news, I don't know if you've noticed, but the news tends to not be very good, right? There's a lot of war, there's a lot of stuff that's just going to stress you out, right? So consuming this content before bed is just going to put you in a kind of a stress state, which I think is really, really problematic. I think there's plenty of research to back this up, but put your phone away. Don't look at your phone when you're in bed. That's another big one. In fact, I leave my phone in a completely different room when I go to bed at night. Now, you might say, well, I need my phone for alarm clock. You probably don't. You can buy an alarm clock for like €5, $5, whatever. If you haven't got the $5 to spend on a alarm clock, put your phone on the opposite side of the room so you can't scroll on it when you're in bed, so that you can't wake up and start scrolling on it. Just get your phone away. Your phone should have nothing to do with bed, and that's really the end of it. There's nothing I can say. I think that's just something that you need to do. Put your phone away. The other thing is breathing exercises. If you are in a stress state, as many of us tend to be, and if you've ignored the phone advice and you're coming to bed stressed after, scrolling through news or social media or whatever, well, we kind of need a way to de-stress, and breathing exercises are really useful. One thing that I really help to what I think helps to relax for me anyway, is to breathe in a kind of slow pattern where I'm breathing in for a certain number of seconds and then I breathe out for the same plus 1 second. So maybe I breathe in for 6 seconds and then breathe out for 7 seconds. Or breathe in for 5 seconds, breathe out for 6 seconds. There's no holes, there's no pauses, but that sort of cadence I just tend to find really relaxing. And I think if you're feeling anxious and like you're feeling like your breathing is very high up in your chest, I think this helps just kind of open up your lungs, and you're aiming to breathe into your belly as much as possible and just kind of relax. I've done separate videos on breathing exercise. You can go check those out. But a way of just trying to relax your body and relax your mind, breathing exercises are great for that. Avoid caffeine, alcohol, and eating before bed. So caffeine is obvious. I think, probably after 3 o'clock in the day, you don't want to be consuming caffeine. Alcohol is an interesting one because I think many of us have drank enough that we pass out and think, hey, if I want to go sleep, I can drink loads of alcohol. Well, alcohol might help you fall asleep, but you've probably noticed that when you sleep after a night of drinking, you don't actually sleep all that well. I'm recording this today. I was actually drank a bottle of wine last night and a couple of whiskeys, and I fell asleep very quickly, but I woke up really, really tired, and I'm still really tired now. Alcohol might help you fall asleep, and it might even make you pass out for 12 hours, but it's not really high quality sleep. You can read up on this, but I've read stuff that suggests that it takes even 3 or 4 days after, let's say, you have 5 or 6 beers. It can take 3 or 4 days before your body's kind of back into its natural cycle where you can actually effectively rest properly. So alcohol, something to be mindful of. And eating before bed, this might not be true for you, but for me, I find that if I go to bed not hungry, but I don't want to be full. I don't want to be bloated. I definitely want to be avoiding sugar. Anything that's kind of causing a sugar spike, which, sugar spikes are useful before you go to the gym or something because there's a lot of energy in sugar. I know some people that do like to eat before bed, and maybe they'll come home and eat a steak and then they'll go to bed and they'll sleep great. That's fine. But for me, an hour before bed, stop eating, I think is generally helpful. Also, try not to drink too much water or I tend to drink tea at night, but if I drink the tea too close, like herbal tea, but if I drink it too close to bed, I'll find that I need to get up in the middle of the night and go toilet. So you're just trying to not disrupt your sleep. Reading, I think reading is a good idea. I have one of these like backlit Kindles where I'll lie in bed and I'll read with that. So the lights are off. It's just the light of the Kindle, which is really soft on the eyes. I think reading is just a great way to switch off your mind. Again, I wouldn't read anything too intense. Nothing that's going to get your heart racing or anything like that. Maybe not an action novel or something, but it's just a good way to switch off your brain and unwind. I often find that when I've gone through my bedtime routine, which I'll talk about in a minute, I start to read, and there's been many nights where I've woken up and the Kindle is just lying on the bed beside me because I've fallen asleep mid-sentence. It's just a good way to switch off, and I think it's a good way to trying to aid your sleep at night. Walking. Now, obviously, you're not going to walk. You're not going to get into bed and walk. That doesn't make any sense. Or going for a walk before bed. But when I say walking, what I mean is getting up first thing in the morning and going for a walk. I think we've all heard Andrew Huberman at this stage. You get up, go for a walk, you get that natural sunlight, and it basically triggers this natural cycle in your body to the point where, 14 hours later or whatever, your body's going to begin a natural wind down where you're ready to sleep. But I have found in my personal experience, the science stuff aside, that's all great, but I found in my personal experience, when I get up and go for a walk, that night I have an easier time falling to sleep because you just get up, you're moving, and increased activity through the day is obviously going to make you more tired, which is going to mean you can sleep. Right. So I think walking first thing in the morning is just a great thing to do. And finally, lower your body temperature. So if you're really, really warm, like I talked about already, I can't sleep when I'm really warm, but generally speaking, you want your body temperature to be lowered to create kind of an optimal environment for sleeping. So lowering your body temperature, what does that look like? It's kind of counterintuitive. Again, I defer to Matt Walker on this, but he says if you can wear socks and even gloves, what it can do is warm your hands, and by warming your hands, the heat is coming from the center of your body, kind of out towards the extremities. Whereas if you do a cold bath or a cold shower, your body can kind of shut down and try and draw all the heat inwards, which is where your core body temperature is, and that's what you're trying to lower. What I'll often do is, especially in the summer, is when I'm about to go to bed, I'll kind of walk around in my bare feet so that I've got wooden floors here, so I feel like the heat is dissipating a little bit. I will always wash my hands and my face with cold water. Again, if you kind of dunk your hands and your face in cold water for a long time, your body will kind of close up the vessels, right, and retain the core heat in your body. But there are ways you can do this where if you're kind of splashing cold water in your face or splashing cold water in your hands, it's just enough to dissipate heat without shutting or closing up all of the blood vessels and stuff that's kind of stopping heat from propagating out from the center of mass, right, your core body temperature. So regardless, lowering your body temperature, you can go read up on that. I've got some techniques that I do. I'm not going to go through all that stuff here. Again, I'll defer to Matt Walker, but lower your body temperature, it will help you sleep. So the final question, and all of the videos that I do like this, I'm going to want to finish with a what should you do. These are things that I've found particularly effective, and it's going to look different for everybody. So what I'm trying to do is not be prescriptive and tell you here is exactly what you should do. I want to focus more on how to think about this stuff. So have a bedtime routine. I don't care what your routine is, but have a bedtime routine. This is a thing that at a certain time, preferably the same time every night, you just kick into this routine. And it's just a thing that you do and you don't even have to think about it. So to give you an example, here's what I do. I might be sitting on the couch watching TV or something like that. If I'm watching a show or a film, I'll probably look at the clock and say, right, there's 20 minutes left in this show. That's when my routine starts. So I'll get on the floor and I'll start doing some stretches. As I'm doing some stretches, I'm doing some breathing. So I'm relaxing, right? I'm still watching the show. I'm just on the floor, stretching out some of my muscles, getting a little bit of movement before bed. Again, very light movement, right? There's no point where I'm heavy breathing. It's relaxed kind of stretching, right? So I'll be stretching as the show is kind of finishing up. I will finish up my stretches. Then I will tidy up a little bit just so the house is, I'm not waking up to a mess. I'll just tidy bits away and kind of just declutter a little bit. And then I will go and, go to the toilet, wash my hands, wash my face with cold water. And then I will get into bed and I will read my Kindle for a little while. And that's the routine. And it's kind of interesting because as soon as I get on the floor to stretch, it's like a message to my brain saying, okay, it's bedtime. Start winding down. Let's go. Now, these routines only really work if you're doing them regularly, right? Doing this once a week, it's not a routine. It's only a routine if you're doing it regularly. So you need to get into the habit. And again, that's my routine. I don't know what your routine looks like. It'll be something that fits your lifestyle or whatever. And I think it's important to think about what are the things that you do actually control, right? If you've got a job and a commute and you got kids and you got whatever else going on in your life, you probably can't control what time you're getting out of bed in the morning, right? You have to get up at a certain time. You have to go to work. You can control what time you go to bed at. So go to bed earlier, nothing good really happens after, 10 or 11 o'clock. Not really, right? But you can control the time you go to bed. So I think it's important to control those things. Have a routine that kicks off at a certain time and, make it that routine. And the second point here is try to go to bed at the same time every day. Your body really likes routines and you'll get into this habit of, it'll be easier to fall asleep if your body is used to going to bed, let's say at 10 o'clock every night. That's your body's time for bed and it will get used to that. And then you're getting up at 7 o'clock, say, or 6 o'clock. Your body will just get used to that routine and you'll find it easier to fall asleep and you'll find it easier to get up in the morning. But trying to go to bed same time every day and getting up at the same time every day. And I put every day in kind of like big underlined caps there because this is true for Saturday, Sunday as well. If you do this Monday to Friday and then spend the weekend massively disrupting your sleep routine, it's going to be hard to get back into during the week. There's always going to be days where you can't do this, but as much as possible, same time every day, really, really helps. The last thing you can do is keep a sleep diary. So you can just track things like Monday, went to bed at X time. Tuesday, got up at X time. Rate my sleep quality out of 10. Write down what did I do for my routine, right? And then over the course of maybe a month, you might start to see patterns, right? Of like, hey, I didn't eat for an hour before bed this week and I slept much better, right? Whatever it is, but you can kind of start, just make, I mean, this doesn't need to be any massive detailed tracking, right? This isn't, you're not doing some complex scientific experiment here where you have to track every single metric, right? Or every single detail. This is just some information that if you can see over time, maybe there's some sort of patterns, maybe you can see these things are making my sleep worse, these things are making my sleep better. Note little things like I was feeling stressed that day, I wasn't feeling stressed this day. How easy was it to fall asleep? How rested did I feel the next day? Gather just kind of useful bits of information like this and then just assess over the period of a few weeks. That's more or less it for today. Look, sleep is hard. Like I said at the start, I think society is set up in a way that it actually makes it harder for us to get a good night's sleep. But it's really, really important. And not being well rested, a lot of the damage happens from poor decision making and other things that kind of just spiral out of control, like pain and pain threshold and decision making, right? And then it all branches out into other factors that gradually compound over time. So don't underestimate sleep. It's really, really important. You will feel better if you sleep better. And if you think you don't have time for sleep, well then maybe consider what if you sleep more and perform better, right? Because if you're not sleeping and spending more hours performing worse at whatever it is you're doing, well, maybe you can sleep an extra hour and perform so much better that actually you need less time to do all the things that you're doing. Anyway, that's it. I think next week I'll talk about maybe eating. Eating's a complex one. I've also got an idea that I call the flare-up protocol that I want to talk about. So if you're interested in any of that, subscribe. We'll talk about that in future videos. But other than that, thank you very much for watching and have a great day.